before we get going, here you guys go on my Ohio voyage, a little article about me and my business. So please check it out and tell me what you guys think. Hey, welcome back, TTP. Today we'll be doing a little makeup tutorial. Bring it back. Okay, it's not really a makeup tutorial as much as do my makeup with me and like vibe. But you know, there's been a lot of changes going on. So many. And y'all already know me. I'm a change queen. I thrive in change. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, so we're just gonna do our makeup today. Something slight, because I've been trying to you know, I don't really like wearing makeup as much these days because my skin be tea. Body tea, face tea, all that. But I am trying to force myself to stop wearing sweats all the time. And I wouldn't be wearing sweats if my makeup was done. Girl math. But yeah, we're just gonna chat and do some updates. First things first, I'm the realist. But really life's good. I don't have no complaints. At first, change can be terrifying, but y'all know me and my good Lord this for real. So I don't really stress the way I used to, because it's just when you're stressed out, you can't see how things are actually moving in your favor. You feel what I'm saying? When you just take a second and show God gratitude for what he's already done in your life, he starts to reveal to you the other things that he's doing and preparing for you. Because a lot of times things may look stagnant because God needs us to be still so he can do the work that he's doing for us, because it's not in our hands. All things give to the Lord in good faith. You feel what I'm saying? So remaining steadfast in my prayer life, and I've been rereading the Bible lately, because I read the Bible front to back. I used to memorize all the verses, all that, because I was in honor code or whatever it's called when I was in middle school, high school with my church. So I told you I'm a church girl, raised. I've gone to the same church since 3rd grade, I think. Shout out to Alicia for putting me on to Chapel Springs. Shout out to Chapel Springs, because I love y'all down. Now I shout out my church, no cursing. But for real, I've just been in this place of gratitude. And it's the more I look back, the more everything, I can tell how everything has been preparing me for life. Really, because a lot of times we feel so unprepared and end up going through the same lessons over and over and over again, simply because a lot of times, I don't want to say we want to, but the steps required to step out of those cycles, a lot of times we're not willing to do them, whether it be giving up certain things, whether it be lust, envy, or just small habits, drinking, whatever you indulge in. And a lot of times we feel oh, God wants us to just not be able to enjoy and blah 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 blah, but in reality it's certain things he's just trying to protect us from ourselves. You feel what I'm saying? Because if we don't have someone that knew us through and through and wanted to guide us, a lot of times we would keep making mistakes before learning that something isn't right for us. And a lot of times we don't really have to, But a lot of times God wants us to learn, not necessarily the hard way, but to experience, so that we never want to experience it again. And that's just the truth, for real, for real. And like, it's so crazy how just sitting down and listening and learning how to discern God's voice from the anxiety and the stress that life comes with, it's so crazy how sometimes the path can seem a whole lot clearer. Like, this past couple months, I've been faced with some decisions, and like, decisions that I once never thought I would ever have to. Not necessarily because I didn't want to, but I just given up a certain level of hope for myself in my life. Like, it's just been certain things I've been through, a lot of things I've been through, that just kind of just almost like this year, even though I accomplished so much, I was starting to get like discouraged, because I was just like, dang, I worked so hard, I bust my ass so hard, and it's just like, where are the results that I expecting? And lo and behold, I started understanding that God puts us in position to get the things that we desire. Not necessarily that He's just going to hand it to you on a plate, and sometimes the blessings do come like that. It's not to say that God's blessings can only come one way, but in order for us to truly have gratitude and appreciate the work that He puts in on our behalf, He will put us in the position to gain certain things and give us a choice. In the time, you might not feel like, oh, this is going to lead me to this, that, and the third. But a lot of times, like, just because we see the first step, we think that we know what the last step will be. And with God, you can't. Maybe, unless He gave you some omniscient skills. And even so, we are spirits living in a human body. So we do have limits. We do have capacities. But God is all. He doesn't have any limits. You feel what I'm saying? So it's like, the limits, we can oftentimes put God in a box because we're like, okay, you told me how to do this, but from my earthly, humanly perspective, this could never come out of this. What I'm asking for could never come out of this situation. And you'd be surprised how God just wants us to take that first step with faith. And then He just moves everything in ways you never thought that He could. Like, for example, God bless all those who were victims of Hurricane Milton, because that's and Hurricane Helene. But it's insane when you really think about the damage that was supposed to be done. Not like damage wasn't done, but with all the prayers and everything that's been being broadcasted, the faith led, is crazy to see how so much mercy as opposed to what we thought was going to happen, what was predicted to be happen, and in turn, like, it's still not good because people lost their lives, but how detrimental things could have been as opposed to the final results. It's only God. It's only God. You feel what I'm saying? And I feel like that's what God's doing right now. He's, amidst all the chaos, He still finds a way to make sure people understand that He is there. He is still present. Because a lot of times we blame God for darkness. And yes, to a certain extent, you could say that a certain level of chaos has been allowed to happen by God so that His people can turn back to Him. But what is the alternative to that? Him allowing the chaos and people don't turn back to Him, and then it just becomes more and more chaos? You feel what I'm saying? And it's hard to have gratitude in situations like this, where it's just so much pain. It's like when you have a heart of hearts, or you have empathy, you don't want to see people in that type of pain. if it's not necessary. And not to say that it's necessary that people had to die, but the sad reality is, us as humans don't really take things seriously enough until we're in a position where we feel like there's no one but God that can fix the situation. And it's not how things were meant to be. But we live in a world where just so much escapism has made people comfortable to feel as if they can escape God and escape what He has ordained for us. But that's just not the reality. It's just not the reality at all. Here you guys go. It's my Tarte Ultra Creamy. I just use my Anastasia for my eyebrows just to shape them out, and then I'm gonna clean it up with my LA Pro Girl concealer. Definitely a staple in my makeup kit. I don't care. I will forever use it. But yeah. I'm slowly but surely learning that everything genuinely does happen for a reason. Though it may be hard to conceive the greater plan in all of it when we don't have the greater perspective of how the world is at this time. For example, I'm just gonna name like a few devastating things that's been going on. In Congo, not only have they been basically used for slavery, for mining for materials for iPhones, but just recently they had capsized on a boat that was 200 plus people. And it's like the lack of care and the lack of value for human life is just sickening. In Ghana, a lot of people are protesting right now because of illegal mining that's poisoning their water supplies. In Nigeria, famine. There are people struggling to find anything that is not so costly that they could eat. Small egg stuff. It's like people are suffering. In the Middle East, people are being victims of a war they don't want to have a part in. In Heyyyy, there's cannibalistic gangs trying to take control of the government, and we're just not being able to fight back. Like, there's something going on everywhere. And it's just like, unfortunately, a lot of times, suffering brings awareness to the things that's going on. It's like people can no longer live in their little bubble and act like, oh, everything is okay, because it's not okay. People are suffering, bro. And if you think that God does not hear those cries, I promise you He does. If anything, like, everything going on in the world and people learning that they don't have to deal with certain things and that their life is worth more than what people tell them and try to allow them to believe so that they can take advantage of them, it's like God is teaching us to value our lives again by unfortunately watching so many others lose theirs. And it's like, it's sad, it's depressing, and a lot of times we don't want to turn on the news and see what's going on. We don't want to see that kids are being defiled and not protected and being taken at such young ages here in the States alone. Understand what I'm saying? So it's like, it's so much. But in the end, God still hears our cries. God still reveals to us the people that are in charge of a lot of the things that's going on, or in heaven, or earthly charge. Understand what I'm saying? People that have been minimizing the value of human life so that they may take advantage and benefit off of them. And now it's like up to us, not only just God. God gives us the position and shows us and reveals to us what we can do. And yes, He will place his hand in certain situations when need be. Like, for example, I've been reading the story of Moses lately. Y'all all know, like, he parted the Red Seas. He brought all the different, or before when they're even trying to get across and whatnot, he was the one that God chose to provide examples for Pharaoh and his power. And God will oftentimes use individuals to show us what we need to see, because a lot of times it's hard to truly like have faith in God when we're not seeing visual examples of his power. But God doesn't move the same way he did in the Old Testament. He provides for us our way through him, but we have to choose that. He's not going to force us to be like, even with the story of Pharaoh, the Israelites still had to choose to believe that it was God who sent him. The Israelites still had to choose to believe that while they were actively running away from Pharaoh and his armies, that God would split a sea for them. You understand? We have to have such unshakable faith in situations where we feel like there is no way out. Because the only way out is to believe. Not only in God, but to believe in yourself and believe that you are worthy and valuable enough for God to make those moves for you. Because a lot of times we miss opportunities because we were like, oh, I just don't feel like this is for me. Maybe for someone else, but not for me. God wouldn't do this for me. But God breathed life into you. God said out of, not want to get gross, but y'all know how many sperm cells are in one period? You feel what I'm saying? Like, so out of I'm sorry, but out of every other cell, he chose you. You feel what I'm saying? Like, do you understand the measurements in all of this and how impossible it was for you to even survive, or even forget just being conceived, but surviving a whole pregnancy, surviving life as a child and then life as an adult? If he didn't value you, you wouldn't be here today to be able to be a testament of his love. So it's like, I just want to say, if anyone is feeling like, oh, my life, or I made so many decisions that God just doesn't value me anymore, and you feel like your life is a reflection of that, sometimes your life is just a reflection of a way to boomerang back to God. You're in a place that you don't want to be, bring yourself back to him. I read somewhere on this one post, it said, God never left you, you left him. And the thing with that, even when we leave God, he still follows us because he lives within us. So you can never really escape him or run from him, because he's always with you one step at a time. The only thing you need to do is reach back and ask for him to hold you again and to guide you again. You understand what I'm saying? Because only a certain level of protection can be allowed when you're not like putting yourself in the position to receive. A lot of times we feel like we have to take control of our lives in ways that we were never meant to. And then when things don't go the way that we want them to go, we blame God. But in reality, he had a different guideline from you. You just didn't want to choose it. And that doesn't make you a bad person. That doesn't make you evil. It doesn't make you useless or less valuable. All it means is that you made a mistake. And as human, God expects us to make mistakes. Because if we didn't make mistakes, we would not be able to get back to him. But you can't be actively making the same decisions that are hurting you and expect God to remove you from them. It's just not reasonable. Because at the end of the day, God is not just our creator, he is our father. He is a perfect father, a perfect mother, if you need to think of him like that. He's a perfect parent. And perfect doesn't mean you get everything that you want, but perfect means that everything that is done with love and done in guidance. But a lot of times, like, especially for those that don't necessarily have that earthly example of unconditional love, because as humans, we're going through our own stuff, and a lot of times people don't choose to heal from what they've been through, and then they put that onto their kids. That doesn't make them bad people necessarily. They make bad decisions. I always say this: I never believe in bad people. Yes, some people may have wickedly rooted hearts, but a lot of times that wickedness is rooted in pain and anger of things that we wish we didn't have to go through. So instead of healing it, we put others through those same pains, and that's not okay. And there will be discipline for that, because as I said, God is a parent. He allows certain things to happen to us to guide us back to Him, because if not, we will be led too far into wickedness and give our souls to it. But when we take a second to hold ourselves accountable for the positions that we've placed ourselves in, and not the positions that God has placed or made and created for us, then we're able to be real with ourselves and go back to the root of why we do the things that we do. Because God will guide us to it, but we have free will so that we may understand our decisions, so that we may not repeat it, but also so that we may be able to teach others how to do the same, so that they don't continue. Because we're not just living for ourselves. If we were just living for ourselves, none of us would be able to have the ability to create children, because a selfish life is not something that you can replicate wholly and fully, because it's self-centered, self-rooted. But when you give your life to God and you focus on His goals and focus on His values for your life, it's a lot clearer in how He wants us to treat ourselves and treat others. So it's bottom line is, y'all, just take a second this week and see where God is trying to guide you. Pray, bro. Prayer is so important. And prayer is just a form of communication. A lot of times we get scared to pray because we're like, oh, well, if we're not praying right. There's no right way to pray. You're just talking to God. Almost as if I'm just talking to you right now. I'm not really talking to you. I'm talking to my camera. So if that helps, that's one thing that also, because even though I was really raised heavily in the faith, I was always had a certain level of shame to speak to God because of certain things I had been through. I felt unworthy to speak to God. I felt like I didn't have the right things to say, so there would be no point in me saying anything at all. But that's just not the truth. And the more I started to talk to myself and understand myself and why I felt certain ways about certain things, the more vulnerable I was able to be with myself. The more vulnerable I was able to be and understand, this isn't how I am for real. But certain things that I've been through have led me to feel like acting like this is okay, because I've either seen it, experienced it, or felt like no one ever did anything about it. So if I did it, why would anyone do anything about it when it came to me? Understand what I'm saying? So it's just don't go into this week thinking that you have to be perfect. Nobody's perfect. Nobody is meant to be perfect. But you're meant to take accountability for the positions that you're in. Because if you always move the fault or the blame to everyone but yourself, you will never be able to fix those things that draw you to certain things. You'll never be able to fix those problems that are so deep rooted in you that you don't even realize how you treat other people. Because at the end of the day, we are all God's children. So if you believe that you're going to be able to treat another one of God's kids any type of way and it's going to be acceptable, it's not. And a lot of times we have to deal with the repercussions of that, and we don't like that. We don't like being held accountable, because there have probably been times in our life where we felt like other people were supposed to be held accountable and they weren't. But that's just not how God works. Yes, it used to be an eye for an eye. If you read the Old Testament, you'll know that quick fast. But the reality is, God wants us to be examples of change, like He was an example of change from the Old Testament to the New Testament. Because honestly, in Genesis. Sodom and Gomorrah, the burning of Sodom and Gomorrah was in Genesis. Off rip, he was already wiping folks out. And it was necessary at that time because of the evil and the, there's literally just no words for it. There's no words for it. But it's like, he didn't want to hurt his children. He didn't want to have to change everything so drastically. But for the sake of future generations, he had to choose the small over the many. Because if you do not, reality is, God is God. If you don't get right, you don't get got or get left. I'm sorry. And it's not just because of you, but it's because you never know who's watching you. You are always an example. Whether you want to be or not, you are always an example. So if you're providing a foul example for his children, and you're leading so many to darkness and deceit and just places that they were never meant to be in the first place, you're gonna get handled. You're gonna get handled. Okay, what I'm saying? And that's not like directed to any specific situation today. It's just the reality. And it's like, it's hard to look at God as an all-loving and all-caring God and also look at him as a disciplinarian. But he is. So as you go throughout this week, remember, pray, love on yourself, and remind yourself that God loves you. Love you guys.